Hey there, trainers, and welcome back after a long hiatus to Soundproof, which is, as you know,
Close.
future site,
Yeah.
which is a Soundproof podcast production. See, it's been so long that I don't even remember how to do my intros anymore. We are Brendan and Jake, as you know, and we have brought you this week another Regulation C match. We had an awful lot of them to choose from because we were gone for so long. So we chose one that we felt was like an interesting set of teams, two really good players, and we're going to go through it as we always do this week.
Yeah, it's a fun match. It was Deuel versus Zackary Thornberg in Milwaukee. They played on day 1 in round 8. And Len is very much known for his Tyranitar, the Lentar, like super specially defensive assault vest, as of most recent generations. And then Zach has been running a lot of his teams are very focused. So like he was pretty known for like Dundo's
Parish,
lately he's been on Mousehold Annihilate, which is very relevant to our interests. Just selfishly, we enjoy those Pokemon. Me specifically. But I've roped you into.
Oh, I always liked them.
Yeah. But it was just fun. It was a fun match. And it gets to kind of showcase a couple different modes on like the Mass Save teams. But also it's kind of, I don't know, it's two different teams in Regulation C that aren't the most like standard popular teams. Like it's not like
definitely some building went into that.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a pair of players that are also really strong in this season. I think Len has had a really interesting career path in the sense that he like disappeared for like over half a decade and now is like a really strong player. He's like the oldest of the old heads that's performing this year. His career goes way back, and Zach is a little bit of a newer player. Well, he's not a newer player, but this is by far his best season in the sense that he is like one of the most consistently performing players in the circuit this year.
He's new to Masters.
He played a long time ago.
Yeah, he got second in the seniors division at Nationals in 2014, and then just kind of dipped, and then came back.
I think he played in 2015 and 2016, but not to the same like level.
Right.
And now he is just like one of the best players in North America.
Yeah, like in contention for like a day 2 invite.
I think he's day 2'd like almost every tournament that he's been to.
Probably,
if not every tournament that he's been to. So yeah. Anyway, really exciting match. As far as the teams go, Jake sort of alluded to it, but they're very different and they're both kind of unique in the current meta. There are pieces of Len's team that we've kind of seen, but not really the same construction. So Corviknight is something that really Alberto pioneered this season, and I think Len kind of picked up on that a little bit. Lycanroc was seen a little bit on like very early Dondozo teams, and like kind of is more of a niche Pokemon anyway, but can still be kind of scary in its own right. And then Leftovers, Terra Steel, Garchomp is a lot of fun. Life Orb, not one of Flutterman's most commonly held items, and then of course Booster Bundle.
Yeah, it's a fun team. Lycanroc, I think, is something that's pretty underexplored. Sandrush, Rock Slide is like never a bad thing to have on your team. And I think more importantly, Len has Endeavor on it, which is a really cool tool. Not in this match, but we saw him on stream. Like he would lead Garchomp, Lycanroc, and just immediately Earthquake himself in Endeavor. So you just bring it down to Sash on turn 1 yourself, and then he was Endeavoring Alberto's Corviknight. What he's trying to do. So it's a cool concept there, especially because it's not bulky at all. It's pretty frail, so that Sash and Endeavor combo can be handy. And those kind of makes sense. It's a Sandveld substitute Garchomp, which is really annoying to play against. And then the Life Orb on Flutter is like the strangest thing, other than like the Lycanroc.
Some of the Terras
in
too.
General. Yeah, some of the Terras are more interesting. It's the Tyranitar has been a lot of things. It churned into Grass Terra Blast Tyranitar in the last couple regionals. But like earlier on in the season, I think it was flying, like the standard one.
But it's always extremely bulky. That's what he's known for.
Yeah.
And then this construction that Zach has is very unique. There have been like kind of bits and pieces that have been, pieced together. Obviously, we've seen Chi-Yu and Flutter before. We've seen Mouse and Ape before. Talonflame is kind of a little bit of an addition to that team because as you can kind of see how offensive it is. You're like needing to be faster than everything in order to like apply the pressure that the team needs to apply. And then Screamtail is something that popped up, I think, for the first time in top 8 of Portland when Navjeet was using it.
Sounds right.
And basically it's starting to sort of pick up usage as people realize that you can like abuse choice users. You can force Pokemon to lock into like suboptimal moves. You can Encore Protects. and things like that. And I think a couple times on stream, we've kind of seen how important that can be for Annihilate when you can force like people to hit it with moves that aren't very effective.
Yeah, no, if you can encore something into like, this is Terra Water Annihilate, so if you catch someone going for
Make it rain.
a water move or make it rain or something like that, you can easily encore them into
you
that.
Can't
and
encore
That's true. You can encore them into like a resisted or a weak move, or better yet, like a protect or a status move or something, and then get some free setup this way. I believe in Fresno that turned into a Golden Go. The 2-year slot was a Golden Go, so we had 2 ways to set up.
Yep.
But even just with Annihilate, it's great, and just with Flutter Mane and Talonflame, too, like a strong Pokemon. Just buying free turns like that is awesome. And like you mentioned, it preys on choice item users a lot, just because you protect once and then you disable. And, like, they can't attack. The Talonflame, I think the Life Orb is cool. I think it seems counterintuitive at first, because like taking Life Orb chip damage means you're breaking Gale Wings, but if you ever attack with Talonflame, you're breaking Gale Wings anyway, because it only has recoil moves. So getting that boosted damage is really cool.
Unless you run the Japan National Champions, no item acrobatics. But yeah, I think Talonflame, I think people are kind of finding out how like good physical attackers are right now, because like some of the Pokemon in the format are extremely physically frail. For example, Chiyu and Flutter, which we're staring at right now, where you can just like throw a Brave Bird at them real quick and do like 90% of their health, if not even more than that.
Yeah, I think for Flutter specifically, you get some really good calcs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you trade your Talonflame for a Tailwind and a Brave Bird, it's done its job.
Yeah, for sure. And to that end, like Life Orb kind of helps with that, because you're taking even more weight and like knocking yourself out.
Die now. All right, so let's get into it. We've got leads up on screen already here. We see a pretty classic lead in Mousehold and Annihilate. We all know what this does at that point.
Yeah.
And then Len is going with Tailwind plus Offense, which is, another pretty classic lead, but one night slower than the offense. So
yeah, the thing with leading into Mousehold is that if you have a Pokemon slower than the Annihilate, it's like pretty primed to just get immediately beat up Rage Fisted. Especially in a scenario like this where like the Annihilate Terra is pretty obvious. Not even obvious. Like
it has to.
Like it almost has to. Yeah, because like the one thing that Annihilate hates seeing the most is obviously Flutter Mane. And you can just have a Terra away from weakness and the Fairy weakness. And since it's Life Orb and not Specs, the Dazzling Gleams don't hurt as much. And especially considering your Citrus on this Annihilate, like even if the Dazzling Gleam does over half, or you have to catch a Shadow Ball or a Moonblast or something, like you're gonna be able to heal it back up.
For sure.
And so, like, beat up Rage Fist is pretty easy here.
Definitely. So there is the promised Terra, of course, where... different Terra first, which is Terra Fairy. They're pretty much all Terra Fairy at this point.
Right.
For a little while, they were, like, experimenting with Steel and Water and defensive Terras, but I think at this point, like, the entire world has locked on to Terra Fairy. Because of just the insane amount of damage that it does. And then there is the promised Terra, where Annihilate simply does not want to take super effective attacks from Flutter Mane. And as you can see, with the Friend Guard and the bulk that they all run, it's not even doing half. It's getting beat up, and something's about to take a lot of damage.
Yeah, the beat up here, you get all 4. You get the 250 power beat up, or the Rage Fist, rather. It goes into Corviknight, and if you like look at Len's camera there, he is shocked by that. I personally was too. I'm pretty sure I was casting this match, if not watching it backstage. Yeah. And that KO, I don't think is something I would have expected. Corviknight to me is on the same kind of like bulk tier as Amoonguss, and you don't knock out Amoonguss with that.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a lot of different ways that you can like train Annihilate, right? Is that you can chuck a ton of things into bulk, you can do a lot of speed, or you can throw EVs into damage, but you can't really beat all 3.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder whether or not there actually is a decent amount of offensive investment on his Annihilate.
Yeah, that's quite possible. I don't know the like Friend Guard interaction with Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam well enough to say like, oh, maybe it's careful instead of Adamant or something like that. Like that Dazzling Gleam damage I just don't have in my head. But you have to have at least some attack, right, for KOing that Corviknight, you would just think.
Yeah, and then the Icy Wind tier is almost always going to bring this Annihilate below half there to give it its Citrus Berry, and then it's just going to be able to take another Dazzling Gleam from here, even with the critical hit, and then something else is going to get knocked out. So this is like a prime opportunity, depending on what you have in the back, to just knock out Flutter Mane or a Drain Fist. A Drain Punch would have like restored an awful lot of HP if that was the option that Zach wanted to go with.
Yeah.
But yeah, now if Tailwind's in the back, like Zack is looking real good.
Yeah, or if Tailwind's in the back, or even like just the Fluttermane is looking really good. The Garchomp can't Char Steel anymore, and it doesn't have like Iron Head or something to threaten the Flutter, just the Earthquake. And at the same time, like the Icy Wind was taking it under half. I don't think the damage there mattered. I think it was with the Mouse Hold that would have not knocked out by another Dazzling Gleam. So I think the Icy Wind makes sense there. Like everything's getting knocked out by H anyway, so the +1 is kind of irrelevant from the Defiant, or +2 rather from Defiant. And losing an Annihilate here kind of sucks, but at the same time, like you just break in Flutter and Brave Bird Gleam in the games, and like it's over, right? Like at this point,
it is finished. Zack is Specs, right? He's definitely Specs Flutter, So there's like zero other end game here, really, because even though Booster Bundle is like almost always the fastest thing, this is kind of like what Talonflame is around for.
Yeah,
as you can kind of see that without a Tailwind option, Booster Bundle can like give fits to this team. And you and I talked about this a couple days ago when we were like talking about Screamtail, in that it's like super good until it's not faster than anything, and then it's like the most useless Pokemon ever.
It's super good until you see a Talonflame or like a Booster Bundle or something that can actually attack before it. I don't know, like at this point it's really just cleaned up. Like the Brave Bird Dazzling Gleam knocks out the
now it's just
bundle
single
without
target.
issue. The Talonflame, I think we're gonna say it's faster than the Fluttermane, so it breaks the sub before the Dazzling Gleam, which is nice. Otherwise you give Garchomp a chance to attack, which I don't know, still probably doesn't win him the game regardless, but it's good to know for both players, I guess. Or I guess Zack knows already, but it's good to know for Len to see that interaction later on, because if you have Garchomp in front of these two, the Flutter attacks after the set gets broken, and there's no Sand Veil in this game to kind of help you out either. So
and it seems like Len's just kind of stalling for time right now. As he tries to figure out what he can do when Corviknight is not able to take a beat up Rage Fist. So there are kind of some options that he could sort of go into. I think that just sort of like leading Sand and knocking out the Mouse Hold in exchange for like using your Terra is like one way that he could potentially go. But then you get into a point where like Talonflame comes onto the field next turn. You could try Booster Bundle. I think that's always like kind of a good lead if you're like specifically looking to get speed control. But as we know, Icy Wind is going to proc Defiant. So it feels like there are some things that he could do, but this specific iteration of like Mouse Hold Annihilate is like really strong into his team.
I mean, just looking at Len's team, like it doesn't seem like there's a lead other than probably the Corviknight like Flutter that we saw that's pretty well equipped into Mouse Hold Annihilate.
Excuse me. Bless you.
And I think that's fine if you're able to either Tailwind, you're going to Brave Bird off on that first turn with the Corviknight. But the Rage Fist KOing there is kind of a huge deal. Whether that's a roll or just a flat out KO, it's really bad for Len, because that's probably like, I mean, Mouse Ape is something you have to at least like think about when you're team building. It's just one of those things that you have to prepare for. And if you don't, you kind of just go right over. And I think that has to be something he considered. You know, Corviknight's bulky enough to take my Rage Fist if I need it to, and I can Tailwind. It didn't work out.
It certainly did not.
It's a little rough there.
So we're back to the drawing board a little bit there. Given that was basically his default plan. And now we're at a point where he has to either like try a backup plan, and he goes with Flutter Bundle. And actually catches the not Mouse Ape lead. So I'm a little interested in what Zack is thinking there, that he is like, okay, Mouse Ape is not it here anymore.
Well, it's probably less that Mouse Ape isn't it, and more that I think if you're Len, you have to like super take Mouse Ape lead into account again. Like you just got run over by it game one. And so you're gonna maybe not overcorrect for it, but you're gonna correct for it in some way.
And I think this is a really good correction for it too.
I think this is a solid lead into Mouse Ape. You give yourself spread damage on both Pokemon to get around Follow Me if you need to. Obviously, Fluttermane with Dazzling Gleam is really good into that core, especially when it's not Fire Ape, but it's Water instead. But at the same time, like this lead from Zack just eats Lens up. Like a Tailwind plus a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam, the bundle's gone. The Flutter takes a lot of damage, doesn't get knocked out, but you also can't knock anything out if you have the Flutter there. Like Life Orb Shadow Ball doesn't KO either. I don't think a Life Orb Moonblast KOs a Terra Fairy Fluttermane and Zaxxon. So So like now if you're Len, you're just immediately pinned by something else instead of the Annihilate.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the things that Zach was talking about, either to me or on stream, I forget which one, but he was just saying it's really easy. Maybe not easy, but like you have the opportunity with a team like this where if you win a game convincingly with not save, you can try and catch people like playing into that and do this instead.
Right. Yeah. So you got started. I think at this point, Len's best option is if he brought Corviknight to try and get into it, but given that it doesn't show up on turn 1, he probably doesn't have to go back.
Yeah. I don't know that Corviknight is like at all useful if it can't take that Rage Fist. Like, there's not really a way to prevent the Rage Fist with Corviknight on the field, so I kind of get like behind.
Yeah, and then the bundle just doesn't get to do anything.
No.
Yeah, so he's completely pinned, right? Is that assuming that some combination of Garchomp, Tyranitar, and Lycanroc is in the back? What switches in? Oh, he does have Corviknight.
He does have Corviknight.
So why do you not switch Corviknight in there? Are you getting KO'd on turn 2 anyway? By oh no, because he specs.
Yeah.
And is it Flare Blitz Talonflame?
I don't think so. I think it's just Brave Bird, Wisp, Talon, Protect.
Huh.
So that could have been an option, but I don't know. Maybe he just didn't want to give up the booster on bundle, which is kind of a big deal, or maybe he thought he would go straight for the Screamtail, not the Screamtail, the Flutter Mane on Len's End instead. Like he shot a ball outside instead of Dazzling or something like that. But I don't know.
Anyway, it's here now, and this is kind of where this scary thing with the dude Screamtail, and it seems luckily like Len is kind of aware of that. Where like if he had Tailwinded that turn, the game probably ends as Screamtail comes onto the field because it's just like sort of an extra free turn that he gets. And I think that's really like a super interesting play, and it was something that I was watching Paul Ruiz do with his Encore bundle, is like switching something like that in as you catch a passive turn or as you catch like a suboptimal attack.
Right. And like if you can encore the Corviknight into a Burn Brave Bird, like it's not doing much.
Zero.
I think Tailwind is Len's only way into that game, so making sure it doesn't Tailwind is really good. Garchomp taking 70% from Brave Bird on the way in means that another Brave Bird in that slot knocks out either Flutter or Garchomp, and there's not really a way to prevent that. Yeah. Even with the Terra Steel here, like maybe Dazzling Gleam chip finishes it, or Brave Bird just gives it.
Some combination of the two.
Yeah. So like Screamtail in this case providing a lot of like threat here without even threatening damage at all, and I think that's also maybe why Len wanted to keep the booster energy on the bundle intact, because if the bundle leaves the field and comes back, Screamtail's faster than it.
And then there's the disable to make sure that not only is it using weak Brave Birds, but it's actually not doing anything, and Talonflame's just going to pick up the resisted KO anyway. So Talonflame, not often known for it, but doing a lot of offensive work this game, and it's not done yet because there is a Flutter Mane in the back that's going to get knocked out by a Brave Bird as well.
Yeah.
But basically at this point, the end game is like there's no way for Len back in. Screamtail is honestly maybe not even in Shadow Ball range yet. It's pretty close. That thing's really bulky.
You can make it take a spec Shadow Ball pretty easily, so Life Orb wouldn't really care of him here.
Yeah, and then the end games with Encore Disable are just like...
Yeah, I mean, Corviknight's just locked. Yeah. Like, Corviknight can't do anything else in this game.
And then Shadow Ball's going to end up picking up Talonflame, but with two Pokemon in the back and one of them being a Flutter Mane, it's like... It's rough out there, and the Screamtail is just kind of like adding insult to injury at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, you just can't get on the Screamtail.
It's a feels bad way to lose.
Yeah, and if you're Zach and you want to make sure the Flutter Mane can't, like, Shadow Ball your own Flutter Mane, you just disable it this turn. And if it tries to protect around the disable, you encore it. Like, we saw the Shadow Ball do less than half to the Terra Fairy, so, like, if you can't Shadow Ball, then... I guess Moonblast might pick it up from here, but at the same time, the Flutter Mane's also just in Gleam range anyway, so Screamtail's just going to win this game.
Yeah, so it's pretty scary. It's a Pokemon that's just started to come around. I know it's probably at this point most well known for being on Wolf's regional winning team.
Yeah.
But that was really like its only appearance in any format.
Yeah.
Until just recently, where it's kind of picking up steam on specifically on these kinds of teams. It's like a really good Golden Go partner. It's a really good Annihilate partner, more specifically. People are using it with setup Chi-Yu like this here, and Zach just happens to have multiple of those things in his arsenal.
Yeah.
But it just creates a lot of space for setup. And I think specifically, I might have mentioned this already, that like for Annihilate, when you can force something to attack it with like an attack that's not doing that much damage, it makes it so scary.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool addition to this team. I think that there's a lot of ways that Zack has to enable setup Pokemon, but also enabling a Specs Flutter Mane is about as effective because you get the damage of something that's used a Nasty Plot just without using a single move beforehand. So I really like Screamtail here. Just the way that you can control games with it, I think it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. It's really, really cool. And you can kind of see, too, in the way that Zack plays it, that he has like a really good understanding of what his flows are and what his game plans are.
I like that you mentioned like aggressively swamping it in on turns and you expect more passive moves.
I mean, it's basically the defensive backbone of his team.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a very offensive team. So yeah, really good match. I think that's, I don't know, we'll have one more before NAIC, right?
Unless, if we do one next week.
Oh, we could.
NAIC is in 10 days.
We'll talk about it.
Wild.
So NAIC is coming up. That's the next big tournament, and then the last tournament before Regulation D, basically, with the exception of locals.
Yeah.
So the culmination of Regulation C is next week. It seems like the format's in a pretty interesting place right now. As you can see, teams kind of like Zack's are popping up. There's sort of this like new take on balance that uses like Iron Hands, Gyarados, Chi-Yu, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Dondozo is still kind of sticking around a little bit. I think it's just like kind of a cool format, and I think specifically you'll see a lot of high-level matches where the teams kind of have like pretty interesting matchups into each other, and there's not really... this is a bad example of the match that we showed, but nothing's really super one-sided, as you see a lot of 2-1 games, especially on day 2 and in Tugcut.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just really like this match because it showed kind of a different side of the
for
series,
sure.
But yeah, like the balanced teams, like if you were watching either Milwaukee or Fresno, they both did very well at both of those regionals. And those games definitely are a little bit more grindy. But I think they're like obviously really solid. Like the Gyarados, Iron Hands. I mean, this kind of stuff is really hard to break with a lot of teams. And so I think kind of taking advantage of that kind of thing is exactly what Zack's team is built to do.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think obviously Lens wasn't that team, but it just kind of exerted that same control over it.
Yeah, definitely. Lens is a little bit slow. It plays more like a balanced team, just with some different Pokemon. So yeah, that's it for us this week. I don't know. We'll maybe be back next week. I know we've been on a little bit of an extended break because we're busy and important people.
And tired.
So we're kind of just on sort of like a when we feel like it schedule at this point. So we might throw one up next week. We'll kind of see. It's going to be busy because we're going to be going to NAIC as well. We'll be there. We'll be there at NAIC. I'm looking forward to playing. It's been like a while since I've played. I only played at San Diego. Yeah. And it's been fun practicing, so I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully we will see some of you folks there.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Cool. Well, until then, enjoy the rest of the week.